Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Mad Madam L podcast. It's been a while. If you have been here before, hello and welcome back. And if you're new, well, welcome. My name is Mel and I'm a botanical yarn dyer and smallholder, amongst other things. And this is my primarily knitting podcast, but with a bit of spinning, a bit of this and that thrown in. It's been quite a few months since my last podcast. I lost my knitting mojo for a time, and then basically I haven't had a huge amount of time for long periods of time where I haven't had much time for knitting and crafting generally. I've been working a lot on the business, and I have a cat who keeps clawing my lap. This is Holly. We have two kitties. We have Holly and Willow's probably asleep somewhere. But Holly's just coming from outside and her claws and paws are filthy, so I'm getting filthy. I live on a small holding on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland, which I think I forgot to mention, with my husband John and some chickens and ducks and such like too. Yeah, like I was saying, I kind of fell off the knitting bandwagon for a short period of time during the spring. I'm not entirely sure why. Nope, no idea, just did. And then business has been quite busy. I am vending at Perth Yarn Festival, so that's been really busy lately because I'm heading south for that in just over a week's time, so I've been working my little socks off. But other than that, just generally dyeing yarn for the local yarn shop and so on. But I can talk more about that later on towards the end. Before that, we've got all the content first, haven't we? So, trying to remember where I was at last time, I've had to kind of skim back through my Ravelry project pages and through my YouTube channel to figure out where I was. But like I said, I haven't done a huge amount of knitting. I have a few finished objects. Most of my finished objects are actually socks, but I have a lot of whips, which are, well, I have a reasonable amount of whips, which are mostly garments rather than socks, fortunately. So anyway, we'll start off with finished objects to begin with and work from there. Okay, first up, and I know these were on the previous episode, these are some Advent socks that I started at Christmas time, obviously last year. I bought a yarn Advent calendar from the Dye Shack on Etsy, and I decided what I would do would be to use the minis, because they were 10-gram minis, I think, use part of the minis to make scrappy socks, and then I'd use up the rest of them, each of the minis, to make a shawl of some description, which I haven't made yet, by the way. So what I did was I did the Hermione's Everyday Socks, which are these ones, and this is the first time I've done this pattern, and I know loads of people have done this pattern, and I can understand why it's so popular. I really enjoyed knitting these. The 4 pattern repeat was just enough, I think it was 4 pattern repeat, pretty sure it was just enough to help you progress along quite quickly. You could say, oh, I'll just do one pattern repeat, and I did 1 pattern repeat of every colour from the Advent calendar, so it felt like they went quite quickly. They come out really jazzy. I'm really pleased with them. The only disadvantage with these, and the reason why I literally finished these last week, was because the socks themselves were finished quite quickly, but all the ends I had to weave in on these. It was like 50 something ends per sock. It took forever. Well, it didn't, but it felt like it would take forever. So I kind of procrastinated and I can't be bothered to do that. So what I did was I wove in the ends during car journeys whilst my husband was driving, basically, just to try and get them done, and finally finished these off about a week ago. So now I can actually wear them. I've not worn them yet, but I can now actually put them in my sock drawer and I can wear these now, which is a good job because almost every other pair of my hand knit socks are currently on my mending pile, but they've already been mended once and they're back on my mending pile because I don't knit socks that often, or rather I don't knit through a pair of socks that quickly because they tend to be my travelling knitting project, and I don't travel as a passenger as much as I used to now that I drive as well and I have my own car, rather than having to share a car and nearly always being the passenger. So I don't knit socks much on each sock very, very often. So although many of my finished objects are socks this time, it's uncommon. It's just because it's been so long. So I need to mend my older socks. I have a plan though. Previously I just kind of knit little patches on and what have you, and repaired stitches. Mostly where my socks tend to go is on the ball of the foot, because I spend a lot of time at home either just wearing slippers or socks, so they don't tend to wear out so much on the heels and toes. It's mostly the balls of the feet. So what I'm planning on doing for the ones that need repairing is I'm going to take a load with me when I head south for Perth and holidays, which I'll talk about later. What I will do is, because I usually knit mine toe up, what I will do is I will pick up the stitches here at the beginning of the gusset for the heel flap, and instead I will rip out all of this section, maybe keep the toe and just keep that side to graft, not on these socks obviously, and I will knit the body of the sock back up to the toe. I'll rip it all out, cut out any rubbishy yarn, get whatever's left over the balls of yarn that I originally knit the socks with, and re-knit that section of the sock. And I might even do some slip stitches on the most vulnerable part of the sock as well. Maybe put some eye of partridges just in that little block, just that tends to be where it goes. And of course, in hindsight, maybe these Hermione's everyday socks, what I should have done was knit the bottom of each sock plain in stockinette, and I kind of wish I had done that now, but it's done now, so there's not much I can do about it. Next time I knit another pair of these, which I will because I really like this pattern and it works well for these speckly variegated yarns, is I will probably knit the bottom in stockinette and reinforce it as well. So that is my first finished object, and it is an entire pair, not just one sock, of Hermione's everyday socks. So I decided I needed to start knitting my husband some socks. I have quite a few socks and I've knit him 2 chunkier weight socks before, a DK weight pair and I suppose it would be an Aran weight, more of like a welly sock, but not a fingering weight sock. So I bought some yarn for him, and this looks huge and I'll explain why. This is a Tiger Effect commercial yarn, and I've knit the toes, which are really blowing out in this light, the toes and heel. I'll try and get a bit closer. No, it's going to. There we go. Toes and heels in one of my own bases, and this is a BFL nylon base, which is my favourite base to knit socks with, and I just use that for toes, heels and cuffs. That way I would save some of the tiger feet yarn, either for another pair of socks for my husband or for myself. If I knit a pair of socks for me, then the main body of the sock, I need roughly 45 to 50 grams for a pair of socks for me, depending on the yarn. And I only need around 25 grams at the very most for toes and heels. But the main body of the sock, I can get away with 50, sometimes a little bit less grams of yarn. And I think I'll probably get away with maybe about 50 grams, maybe a fraction more for my husband's. But if it only uses about 55, there should be still enough for a pair for myself. The problem with this sock is I knit it too long. Because I have no experience of knitting from my husband, this fingering weight yarn, I was a little unsure when to stop the start the gust increases, I should say. So it's a little bit long in the body of the sock, and I can't decide whether to cut a piece out and graft it or just leave it, because socks do shrink a little bit as they wear, so it might be fine. I'm not sure. I need to see. He seems to think it's all right, but he hasn't actually worn it yet, so I'm not sure. But all I've done is it's just basic vanilla sock. It has a heel flap and gusset, and the heel flap, again, this is blowing out, so I do apologise, but I'll try and shade the studio light a bit. It's quite a dull day here, so I've had to put the studio light on. And it is a eye of partridge heel with a heel flap stitch on the heel itself, which is basically the same as I do vanilla socks for myself. And I've done a, a 2x2 rib at the top. Now, like I was saying, I've done the contrast in a BFL nylon base. The yarn I've used for the body of the sock is, I have got the label here, it is an opal yarn, and the colourway is called Hannah, or colourway 784. Which way up is that? That way. That's the, I'll try and focus. There we go. And it is an opal. I don't even ask me to pronounce that, but it's an opal commercial yarn. Now the base they use, from what I understand, is a German breed of sheep, but I'm not entirely sure what the breed is. It reminds me of BFL in a lot of ways. It's slightly coarser than BFL, not as coarse as a Shetland, somewhere in between. So the BFL nylon base works really, really well. The only way you could beat it would be to have a Shetland nylon base, and I don't think you can get a Shetland nylon base very easy, not without having it spun up, having it ordered, without ordering it from a mill yourself. I don't think Shetland and nylon blend is something you can come across generally. So BFL is a good close match, as it were. I much prefer it over a merino nylon. The merino socks that I have knit myself haven't lasted a third of the time that commercial stock yarns have. They've just worn out far too quickly. I'm not exactly a small girl, so my extra weight on a pair of merino socks, they just don't last. They just wear out too quickly. I mean, I've always been heavy on my feet. I used to wear out school shoes like really quickly as well. So BFL is perfect and is my favourite base, and I like a smooth BFL now. Well, I like a smooth yarn as opposed to the one with lots of bumps for socks. The bumps I like for garments, which I've got as well in my whip pile. So that's my other finished item. Everything else is whips as far as I'm aware. Yeah, and I think it's pretty much all garments. Oh, my mistake. One thing that's not a garment. Okay, this should have been a whip, but it isn't a whip because it's going to be frogged, I think. I bought some yarn before the end of last year, not thinking. I bought some 50-gram skeins from Felt Fusion, and I love Felt Fusion's colourways. I bought this particular one for this particular sock, which comes up really pretty. And there we go, really pretty, really, really pretty. And I dropped the label, but the colourway is called Flower Vine. And what I didn't take into account, I bought this and two other 50-gram skeins. The idea being I could make some DK weight wintry socks, and I would do the toes and heels and cuffs again, contrast with BFL nylon, and I would hold the yarn double to make more of a DK weight yarn for the DK weight yarn body. But I didn't think about this, and the yarn is a pure superwash merino, no nylon. So even though I wouldn't wear them in like slippers or shoes, so there'd be less wear on them, kind of, I don't know, for some reason I had in my head that they were just the merino nylon, but they're not, they're 100% merino. So not much good for socks. But I wanted them for socks, and they were only 50-gram skeins, and so they're not a lot of yarn for anything else. So I thought about it, and I decided what I would do is I would knit the bottom of the socks also in BFL nylon, and just the tops of the socks and the ankle in the DK merino. My cat is now sitting on my sock. Come on, lift up. Well, I've thought about how I could do this, and I thought, oh, I could knit around and knit back and kind of pick up the stitches each side, kind of like a wrap and turn. Kind of fudged it, truthfully. Wasn't entirely sure what I was doing. It worked of a fashion. You can obviously see the join where I've done that, and it's kind of a ridged join, but I managed to do it. And I did the gusset, I did my usual heel, and I actually didn't do eye of partridge for change. I actually did heel stitch ridges on the heel, which I don't normally do, but I thought would look pretty. And I did a 1x1 rib, and I hate knitting rib. Did a good length of 1x1 rib, and I tried it on and it was too small. Yeah, it was too narrow. Needs to be bigger. Not big enough. Well, I can get them on when it's not that comfortable, and I imagine after 1 or 2 washes it's going to be even less comfortable. Going by other DK weight socks, they seem to shrink that a little bit more than a fingering weight. They haven't got as much give. So it was after all that work. Again, it was a travel knit, so you know it didn't take that long, but it's work that you put in, which then you don't have to frog, which is always frustrating. I decided I'm going to frog it, and what I'm going to do instead, and what I should have done in the first place, and what was I thinking, I'm going to knit the foot of the sock flat, and then just have one seam, and just mattress stitch it. But what I might do, thinking about it now, is I might just pick up the stitches, I might just pick up the stitches for the body and just rip out that section and knit that flat, rather than knit all the ankle and redoing the rib again. Just re-knit the body of the foot of the sock. I'm just not looking forward to frogging it. But again, I'm going to take lots of these little niggly knitting jobs away with me in a week or so's time. So I can hopefully get these done whilst travelling, although there isn't an awful lot of driving travelling this time because we've got a little plan where to go as far as that's concerned. But I can do them of an evening and things like that and get them out the way, because where we're stopping is going to be in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, so that is my should have been finished object, is now for the frog pile object. Okay, I've just adjusted my light. I'm hoping that's going to be better when I'm showing items on the camera. Okay, finally into some more interesting items. And first up is my current most worked on whip. I'm working on this as much as possible on an evening. Well, certainly I have for the last week or so. I did quite a bit of this a few weeks ago and then got put aside during Tour de Fleece, and I've picked it back up over the last week or so. So this is my Zweig sweater that I'm working on, and I'm going to try and show this off because I've got this on quite a small cable for whilst I was doing the neckline, and I haven't swapped over to a larger one yet. But as you can see, I am past the colourwork and lace section, and I am now onto just the stockinette. So this design is by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. I love Caitlin Hunter's designs. I have another one of her designs on the needles as well. So I've used my own yarns for this one, my own dyed yarns rather. Obviously I didn't spin them. And I'm using a green semi-solid and a speckle yarn for the lace work and colour work, and literally you can see I'm like 2 rows past the colour work here. And these are on a BFL nylon high twist. I love BFL. If I was knitting a shawl, I might knit in BFL, but if I had a merino yarn or something soft of that nature, I would be more likely to use it for a shawl or cowl or something that's going to be around my neck. rather than use it up on something like mittens or a sweater, if I had the option, because I have a bit of a princess neck. So if I have a soft yarn, I'm going to take advantage of that softness, if you understand what I mean. So although I would wear this next to my neck quite happily because I have a princess neck, but BFL doesn't bother me. I'm not entirely sure where I was going with that. Oh, I decided to use BFL for my sweater. Because if I use merino for a sweater, chances are it's going to pill quite a bit. Not necessarily. Some people find that merino doesn't pill for them particularly. I have lots of lumps and bumps and curves, so lots of things rub, therefore more pilling. So BFL doesn't have that same problem. You're going to get a little bit of pilling at some point down the line, but not the same way you would with merino. So I'm done this in BFL nylon high twist. Also gives it that extra bit of resistance to friction. So as you can see, the high twist yarn has these bumps, and this is what I was talking about earlier about sock yarns being smooth, which is my preference. No, you can knit socks with this, not a problem. I like them smooth because I like the extra toughness, because, you know, heavy on my feet. But I do love the bumps of the high twist. Also, I do a merino nylon which has bumps. I like to call them bumps. Which isn't a high twist but still has the bumps. It's just to do with the amount of plies in the yarn. Not to be confused with 4-ply fingering yarn, which doesn't have to have 4 plies at all. Just old British terms for yarn weights. So 4-ply doesn't have to have 4 plies. This has, let me count because I don't remember. This has 2 plies, which gives it that bumpy texture, as opposed to the smoother yarn, which I believe has 4 plies in it, but I'm not entirely sure. And this I have dyed in a colour which I do not do very often because it's a pain in the jacksy to rinse out, but it is weld over dyed with indigo, a strong indigo vat, and sometimes it doesn't take much rinsing out, other times it's a real pain in the bum, because indigo can be a bit of a pain in the bum to rinse sometimes. You think you've rinsed it and then you haven't. Fortunately, it doesn't really, indigo's unusual dye. When you knit with it, it's almost like when you've got a new pair of jeans, and you know, if you rub your hand on your thigh, and you get a blue tint on your hand, but it's not really stained your hand, because as soon as you go wash your hands, it comes off completely. So it doesn't really stain, it just kind of transfers. I think it's called, is it called tanking, something like that? I'm not sure. If it's wrong, I'll put it up on the screen. So it kind of does that with this, just this colourway. So I don't do this very often. I specifically dyed up a sweater's quantity of this for myself, and there is a sweater's quantity of this going with me to Perth as well. So if you're at Perth and you want this colourway, it's the only time I dye it, because unless somebody custom orders it, I don't do it. So the main body is in this, and I can't remember what the colourway is called because it's so infrequent I dye it. And the contrast yarn I'm using is this one. Oh, it's not blowing out quite so bad now. And it is my pumpkin picking colourway. And it has speckles of orange and dark gold. And this kind of a pinky orange that comes from the madder. And green on a natural background. But the natural background has like a golden tint from the other dyes. As you can see, it's not completely cream. It's really pretty. And it works really well because of the green speckles with this green yarn. I'm happy with it so far. I haven't tried it on yet because I need to switch it on to the longer cable. I've got to the point where, for me, I'm going to have to separate for the arms, for the sleeves and body, arms and body, that's it. Because you're supposed to knit once you get past this point till it's 12 inches for my size that I'm knitting, but it's already at 12 inches. So I'm going to be separating pretty much, I think I've come to the end of a round. Yeah, I've come to the end of a round. So I'll be separating on this next round, and I will separate it on tray longer cable at the same time. I'm knitting this on a 3.5mm on my Looky needles, Looky tips. I have a mixture of these and the Knit Pro, and I just use the Knit Pro cables generally. They're easier to get hold of, and but I prefer these most because the size doesn't rub off on the needle, which it does with the Knit Pro. I will hopefully be able to tell you a little bit more about the fit and everything once I get a bit further down, but this is probably only the second or third time I've knit lace. I really like it. I'm tempted to block this part out just to see how it looks, but I don't suppose it really matters. I guess it would give me a bit more idea of fit, but once you put it on, it's all going to stretch out anyway. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed knitting the lace work. There's probably one or two little minor mistakes in it where I've basically been watching TV and lost my concentration and thought, I got the wrong number of stitches on this pattern repeat. Why? And then I've had to fix it. So there might be the odd, maybe a couple of stitches. They might be right, but they might be wrong. I'm not sure, but it's worked out well. I've not changed needle size. I've changed the collar at the top. I've made it much wider. The original sweater has quite a high neckline. I don't do high necklines. So you're supposed to knit the collar, knit the rib, and then increase the stitches. So all I did was I started with the stitch count that you're supposed to have after you've increased for the neckline. So instead, and then I've done the rib at that amount of stitches instead. So it's more of a, I suppose, a boat neck. Maybe not quite as wide as a boat neck, but it's wider than the crew neck that it originally had. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping to get a bit further on it to wear at Perth. Whether I'll get it finished or not doesn't matter. It's fingering weight sweater. That's a lot of stitches for my size sweater. That's a lot of stitches. I'd like to think so. I might be weaving in ends whilst I'm wearing it, but we'll see. Maybe by day 2. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, I have another project which I want to wear for Perth, which I'm going to show you next. Okay, my next whip is the Plumetis shawl here, which is gorgeous, which is by Melody Hoffman, and I love this shawl. It's a really simple shawl. It's mostly garter, and if you can see that on the picture, it's mostly garter with little eyelets, but it's got this really clever added on, it's not really, I suppose it is a border. It's on two sides of the triangle, and it's kind of wedge shaped border, thinner at the bottom of the triangle, and wider at the width of the triangle. I'll try and see if I can find a photo that hasn't got the pattern on, which actually shows the design. I don't think it has. No, sorry about that. So, and I'm doing it in very similar colours to the original design. So I'm doing it in undyed yarn for the main body and in a pink for the border. And the yarns I'm using, again, are my own yarns, and this is a completely different base. I love this base so much. This is a merino tencel base, and it's so soft and shiny. I have fluff in my mouth. I got it. You're not going to be able to see it very well. It's just going to look white. Haha. It's just, as you can see, plain garter and these eyelets. That little progress keeper is a little rainbow with a little pink clasp. I think you can see it. There we go. This is done by black Lily of Nordic Stitches when she was still making stitch markers and such like. And I thought it was really pretty because I'm going to have a pink border and I have pink clasp, and it's just really pretty. Now the shine on this yarn doesn't show up on the shawl on camera. I'm hoping it will on the yarn. The base is undyed. Wow, that's how shiny it is. That's how much it's blowing out. Wow. It's just let's see if we can get it to focus. It wants to focus on my face. There we go. It's an undyed. You can see it's a little bit shiny. It's really pretty. It's got a wee bit of hairs, just a wee bit, not a lot. That'll be from the merino. The tencel is a plant-based fibre, similar to fibre produced from bamboo or any of those plant-based ones. It's more environmentally friendly than cotton. Cotton's a great fibre. I love cotton. Cotton uses a lot of water to produce yarn from the plant. Tencel uses a lot less water and it's almost the way it's made. It's just, I'll try and let's put a link below on which describes the technique of how tencel is made. But I love tencel. It's got, cotton is quite a matte fibre, but tencel is like super shiny. I mean, bamboo's shiny, but bamboo tends to make a yarn look kind of heathered, whereas tencel makes a yarn look shiny. I'm going to try and show that with the contrast colour. Oh, look at that, look at the shine on that. It's so pretty. It's beautiful. I love this base so much. I'm taking a whole bunch of it to Perth, dyed in various colours. I'm taking some undyed as well if anybody else wants to make a plumetis in white or pink or white or blue and white and green, white and yellow, or white and rose gold. Oh yeah, I went there and made rose gold naturally dyed yarn. But this one is more of a cold pink, a cool pink. Almost a dusky pink, but not quite. It's got, this one was what I would call an oops skein. Not really an oops skein, but it didn't come out the same as the others in the batch, in that some of the dye took in bigger patches. There's one or two flecks in all of them, but this one had some bigger patches of the darker pink in it. So I thought, that's an excuse to knit that for myself. So I have one skein of the pink and two skeins of the undyed, super shiny. It blows out so much white. It's not going to show. No, it's not going to show. It doesn't matter. You've seen the pink. Pink shows off the shine. I mean, just look at that shine. One skein of this, two skeins of white. I'm hoping there'll be enough. If not, I'll just slightly adjust the pattern. There should be enough, if not almost enough. So I will knit the white until basically either I finish the pattern or I run out of yarn. And the pink, I will knit the border until I run out of yarn, basically. Or I finish the pattern. So I'm going to take this, if it's not finished, to Perth with me. Although, because, as I'm going to speak about, I'm going to be on holiday for the week previous to Perth, I can get a load of knitting done then. So I might be wearing this at Perth too. So hopefully I'll have a sample to show this yarn knitted up. That's the plan. But also because I want something pretty and hand knitted by me to wear for Perth that's finished and not just socks. Okay, we're coming on to the last whip, which should have been a finished object again, but got put on the back burner for good reason. Last time I podcasted, I showed the beginning of this project, and I'd only got about, now I'm going to show it all now, but I'm going to have that much done. But now I've got this much done, like all of this. But I'm going to have to frog the bottom rib. This sweater was supposed to be for me. This is the Umpqua sweater. Again, Caitlin Hunter. I haven't got the pattern to hand, but it is a worsted weight sweater. I've not knit this in an Aran weight, or mostly Aran weight yarn, to make a big autumnal sweater. And I got partway through knitting it and I thought, I couldn't decide whether to knit this as like a big oversized sweater or whether to crop it. And I thought about, well, you know, I want to wear it with like a skirt or stuff like that, so I should do it cropped. I like wearing dresses and skirts. At home I'm either in a dress or sweatpants. There is no middle ground. Jeans are for outside the house. Don't do in the house. So obviously I wouldn't really be wearing it. I guess I could wear it with sweatpants if it was an oversized sweater, but if I wanted to wear it with a dress or a skirt, it would need to be cropped to look right. So I thought, okay, I'll do it as a crop. It's going to be a bit chunky, but it'll be okay. Well, I did it, and I started knitting the rib, and I tried it on, and I didn't like the fit. The fit at the back, I have quite a sway to my lower back. I've my curves. I've got quite a I have an hourglass shape, and I have quite a sway in my back. So this sweater kind of hangs from the middle of my shoulders down, but it looks really baggy and odd. It just looked odd at the back. It needed some back shaping, putting in it, or back darts really, for it to look right. And if it was a fingering weight, it would hang differently. It would have more drape, but because this is an iron weight, it just hasn't got that drape. So it just didn't look right. If I'd knitted as an oversized sweater, it probably would have been fine because it would sit lower and it wouldn't really matter. But because of the way it was, I just didn't like the fit. But it does look good on my husband, and he does like the colours of the sweater. He's always said he's liked the colours of the sweater. So what I've decided I'm going to do is, because it fits, I actually blocked it, or partly blocked it, to see if the top would block out. The bottom bit hasn't been blocked, but the yoke section a little bit further has been. And it helped, but it still didn't look right. But it does look good on him. So I'm going to rip out this ribbing, which breaks my heart because I do not like knitting rib. And I knit a 1x1 rib on this. I will not be knitting 1x1 rib for my husband. I will be knitting 2x2 rib. So I'm going to rip out the rib and knit it a lot longer. My husband is 6'3", so it needs a lot more length. He has a long back. Most sweaters are too short on him, or rather they ride up, and the sleeves are going to have to be like gorilla sleeves because he's got really long arms. So this is destined to be his. So because I was knitting this in the spring and it was coming up to summer, it got put to one side. I was disheartened by the fact that I was going to have to frog back the rib, and it was spring summer. It's not going to get worn over the summer months, so I thought I'll pick this back up in the autumn, finish it off. It's iron weight. It won't take that long to do, and then John can have it for the autumn and the winter months, especially for the winter because it is quite a thick sweater. I've knit this in deep stash, a mixture of deep stash and old stash and really deep stash. So the main body, the brown, is it Drops Alaska, I think? Let me double check. Yes, it is. It is Drops Alaska. Old Stash Drops Alaska in colour 253. Basically, it's a cool dark brown. And the green is Drops Nepal, which is, I think it's got alpaca in that. Yep, that's that. And that's colourway, God knows, where's that? Can't find it. 7238. 7238. And the beige, let me go digging around. I've got 100 labels in here. The beige is also Drops Alaska, and I'm hunting for the label, or a label. I can't find one. It's on my Ravelry project page. And the foxy brown colour is some of this, which is Deep Stash. This would have been from the charity shop years ago, I believe, and I'm holding this double because this is a DK weight to make it kind of on a par with the other yarns. It's not. You can tell where I've used the rusty brown colour. It feels a lot thicker. well, it feels thicker than where there is 2 colours of the Aran weight. It feels just a little bit thicker. It looks fine. It's just, you can kind of feel it a little with your fingers. He won't, because he has asbestos fingers. He can't feel a thing. Just go. Whoops. I just nearly kicked my camera over. Let's level us up. There we go. So, yeah. That's the plan for this. It fits him well. Very similar torso size. Actually really, really similar. And waist size. It can be very useful when I go to, like, buy him something to wear, because he doesn't do clothes shopping. So yes, that's it's so what I plan to do is I will maybe knit this again for myself in some other yarn, because I do like the design. I like the simplicity of the yoke. I really enjoyed knitting this. It's really easy, it's really quick, it's because it's a heavy weight. But when I knit this again for me, if I knit this again for me, which I probably will, I will knit it as a proper oversized sweater. I'll not bother with trying to crop it or any of that malarkey. And I don't know what colours I do. Definitely wintry colours. I really wanted the autumn colours. But now my husband's going to get it. Maybe we should have a communal sweater. Let's say, it's yours, but if I want... My fringes drive me crazy, sorry about that. But if I want to wear it, then I'll just borrow it. Communal sweater. So that is my final knitting project on the needles at present. Okay, so I think that's it for the main bulk of it. And now it's just a little bit of chatter at the end. I'm trying to keep we've got fibres floating through the air now. Try to keep this as short as possible. I'm hoping to keep it under an hour. I know it's been a long time since I last podcasted, which is why it's going to be a little bit longer, but I'll just keep this little section really short. As I've said, I'm going to Perth Yarn Festival as a vendor. First time I've vended at such a large event. I've done craft fairs and such like, but not as at a large event. So I'm kind of nervous. So if you're there and you see me, just come up and say hello and say you've seen me on the podcast, because I'll be like, I'm okay with customer service. I've worked in customer service before. So I'm used to dealing, like talking to the public. That's not a problem. But I'm actually quite shy until you get to know me, and then I'll tell you my life story. So I won't actively go up to people and say hello generally, unless it's in a customer service capacity. But if people speak to me and say hello, I'm fine. I'm quite friendly, and like it says, I can overshare. I'll try not to do that. I probably won't do that at Perth, but you know, that sort of a personality. So I'm looking forward to it, but really nervous. I'm still working my butt off, getting ready. I've got, my list is getting shorter, but there's still a lot to do. And I've still got yarn to dye, and I've got about a week until I leave. And I've got to dye yarns. I've got a lot of yarn dyed, but I've still some, I just want the list finished. It needs dyeing and labelling and everything that goes with it. My husband is being a trooper, and he's labelling brilliantly. He's good at labelling. So Perth is September 7th and 8th, the Saturday and Sunday. But I've only got a week until I go away, because the week on the run up to that, the weekdays on the run up to the weekend, I'm going to be away as well. I'm going to be in Perthshire for a short holiday with my mum before the actual yarn festival. So I'm travelling down on the Monday night overnight boat to Aberdeen. So there's not that much driving once we get over the water. I don't enjoy travelling on the Aberdeen boat. It's not so bad going south, because you set off at sort of like 11 o'clock at night, and you don't get into Aberdeen from Orkney. You don't get into Aberdeen till 7 o'clock in the morning, which sounds a long time, and it is. Actually, you're on the boat from before 11 o'clock. The boat doesn't leave Kirkwall, Orkney, until midnight, and it gets into Aberdeen at 7 o'clock in the morning. If you were heading north, it leaves at 5 o'clock tea time and gets to Kirkwall at 11 o'clock, which is only 6 hours. It's not 7 hours. It must be just to do with docking times and blah, blah, blah. So, but it's not so bad because it's overnight. Because you're not setting off till nearly midnight, you can sleep through most of the night as best you can. And you wake up the next morning. Whereas if you're going north, you're getting on at tea time, probably a bit before that, usually on the boat by around 4ish, but you're not getting off the boat till 11 o'clock and you're awake the whole time because you're not travelling through the night, you're travelling in the daytime, so you're awake the whole time and it feels like purgatory. You get to, like, you just do a bit, and you do a bit of knitting, you do a bit of reading, you look at your watch, oh my god, it's only 7 o'clock. I have 4 hours to go. And then you do a bit more, it's 8 o'clock. That's kind of what it's like travelling north in the Aberdeen, but I do not enjoy it. I do not plan on coming back that way at this time, if I can avoid it, and hopefully I'm avoiding it. So we're travelling down the Aberdeen boat, get down to Perth, or get down to Aberdeen on the Tuesday morning, and we are travelling down to Perthshire, which is only a couple of hours drive from Aberdeen, fortunately. And we've got a few days before the yarn festival, so a bit of walking, lots of knitting. My mum's going to be doing a lot more walking than I am. I'm kind of a vehicle support, as it were. She asked me to do a big walk with her, and I'm like, nah, I've been here before. I do not want to watch your back 100 yards in front of me for 70 miles, like last time when we walked the Great Glen Way. No, 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 no. So I will drive the vehicle and we'll drop her off and pick her up and go back to our digs. I'll do some walking with her. I'll do part of it, do a bit, come back to the car. Then I'll go back to our Airbnb and I will chill because I will have been stressed out getting ready for the yarn festival. I've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, most of Friday to kind of do my own thing, which will be really nice. I'm going to take lots of knitting jobs with me, all those little finishing up bits to do during that week. Our Airbnb is this little cottage in the middle of freaking nowhere. It's perfect. I mean, I live in a cottage in the middle of nowhere. It's like home from home, except with trees. I have trees. I have small trees because we live on an island. But Perthshire has trees. It also has deers and deer ticks. Walking boots will be the order of the day, not walking sandals. But Perthshire in the autumn. Or if I was in America, I could say Vermont in the fall. Because Perthshire in the autumn is kind of like Vermont in the fall. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Admittedly, it's the beginning of September, so not much autumn colour. That really is the back end of September, beginning of October. Back end of September is really nice in Perthshire. But being out will do for me. Forest walks, which we don't get up here, and sitting in little cottages with wood burner, knitting, nobody else there, quiet, middle of nowhere, the sound of the countryside. I'm pretty sure in shooting countries that maybe not so quiet, but it'll be nice and relaxing, I'm hoping. And then we've got Perth. We've got, can't say where I am in the festival because it hasn't been revealed yet, but you will find me there. If you are there, come say hi. I know a couple of people that are going to be there that are going to come along, so hopefully we'll see somebody I know. And after that, on the Monday morning, we're going to be leaving Perthshire, and my mum will be going elsewhere. She's going to be visiting her parents, and I will be travelling further south again. I'm travelling down, heading to Bristol, where I'm going to meet my oldest son and his girlfriend, and we're going to have a little short break. So I'm going to be away from home for a couple of weeks, so we're going to have a short break at the seaside, do a bit of, seasidey things. Hopefully we'll have some decent weather. Take me cosy. They do have a pool, so that's all right. And just do a bit of like south things that we don't usually do up here. I've got that's a midweek break. And then after that, I'm heading off on another little jolly, because if I'm going to go south on a boat, I've got to do the whole shebang, because I don't go off the island that often. So the Friday, my son and his girlfriend will head back home, and I will carry on to my next leg of the journey, which is going to be to Glastonbury. And I try to go to Glastonbury once a year if I possibly can. Last year I managed twice. This year it's only going to be the once. I can't see me going again before Christmas. Touch wood. Hopefully not. I don't want to go south again. So I'm going to go to Glastonbury for a few days on my own. Friday through till Tuesday, I think it is. And I have an Airbnb booked there too. And I'm going to spend a few days soaking in Glastonbury. It's like it's like I like to make it. It's not like a pilgrimage as such, but I feel like I like top up the energy batteries in Glastonbury. I love Glastonbury. It's the most weirdest place in the world. It's probably not the weirdest place in the world, but it's the most strangest place to describe for anybody who's never been to Glastonbury. I love Glastonbury. So I'm going to spend a few days there, soak in the energies, go up the tour, go visit all the bits. Might even actually get in to visit the Abbey this time, because every time I'm in Glastonbury I don't have time to visit the Abbey, and I haven't visited it yet. And I think there's a nature walk taking place one of the days I'm there around the Abbey grounds, which will be really nice. So that'll be a bit different. So hopefully get to see that. So actually, if anybody's in Glastonbury around that time, you know, sees me, say hi. It would be kind of weird, but you know, say hi. I'd be quite happy for anybody to come say hi to me. I'm quite, yeah, fine. So yeah, a few days in Glastonbury and back home on the Tuesday. So all in all, just a smidgen over 2 weeks away from home. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully, and after that I can actually slow down for the autumn for a time. We've got Vlogtober coming up again soon. I do plan on doing Vlogtober and Vlogmas this year, and hopefully no building work in December, so there'll be more Christmassy things and no flooring. That's boring. Flooring is boring. So hopefully, if you can hear that creaking, that's the cat trying to open the door. Vlogtober and then Vlogmas. So I think that's it for me. It's kind of running up time now. I'll edit out as much as the bits that doesn't need to be done, but I think we're edging up to an hour, which I don't really want, but you know, what can we do? And I will hopefully speak to you again soon. I don't know whether I'll be at a podcast again before Perth, but if I do, I shall obviously see you then. I don't think I'll have got a huge amount of knitting done before then, but otherwise it'll be once I come back from Perth. And I will try and record as much as possible while I'm at Perth, but obviously as a vendor I'm not going to have as much time to video and stuff because I'll be on the stall, although my mum will be on the stall with me too, so hopefully I will get some time, and obviously some retail therapy time too. So, well, thank you for listening through at the end if you're still here, and I will hopefully see you on the next podcast. Bye.